My name is Joseph Hurst. I live in Ankeny, Iowa, and I'm a part of the PMBA program. I currently work as the Director of Sales at Stony Creek Hotels in Johnston, Iowa, and I chose the Iowa State MBA program because it just made perfect sense. About 2 years ago, I started this wonderful program, and I couldn't imagine not having done it. What has helped the most balance work, life, school, has been the people I'm in class with. It's great to go through questions, problems, study for tests, and it just makes the whole class so much easier. As a working professional thinking about doing an MBA program, I get night classes aren't everybody's dream. I get after a long day of work, you may not want to go do more, but it's worth it. You're gonna learn a lot, not just from the professors in the program, but from the other students. They come from all walks of life. They are from different age groups, they're from different companies, they're from all kinds of different backgrounds, they've got all kinds of different stories. And after 2 years, I've made some of the best friends I've ever made, learned the most I've ever learned, and I can't imagine what we're gonna do after we're done.
Success in farming is all about precision and efficiency, ensuring every seed, every drop of water, every nutrient and treatment counts. Terraplex Ag is helping farmers all over Iowa and the Midwest do just that. With precision ag drone technology and support from Terraplex, you'll boost your productivity and make timely and informed decisions, all while reducing your costs and increasing your profit. It's time to revolutionize your farming. Harvest the benefits with Terraplex Ag. Visit terraplexag.com.
What is up? Welcome to Williams and Blum Wednesday. We are recording this at around 11:50 noon on Wednesday. We are excited to be here. I'm jonesing for football now. It was funny a week and a half ago.
The game?
No,
I'm out. I can't convince the wife to
so here's what I'm going to do.
Allow me to do that.
This is what I'm going to do.
And I'm getting a little bit antsy.
This is what I'm going to do. I don't know if you knew this, remodeling my basement after the flood.
It's because Aiden didn't provide you.
Aiden didn't sense the flood water rising
I did
around
on
him.
purpose. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Well, a couple of sponsor plugs here. Colin Newell, and the Farm Bureau, they took care of me, and my point is, I've been wanting to kind of redo it for a while, and it's just like, well, everything got destroyed. We may as well redo it now. So I'm remodeling the basement, and I'm getting rid of my projector. We're not going to have the projector screen and the surround sound anymore because, frankly, it's kind of a pain. It's like cool, but it is.
Yeah, and then the TVs are getting to the point where
it used to be like if you wanted a huge screen, you needed to be able to afford it. The projector was the way to go. Well, now these TVs are so cheap that whatever. So I'm actually going tomorrow. I'm going to go to Nebraska Furniture Mart with our buddy Tim Mullen, and going to go support another sponsor. And they have the Mart card where it's interest free. I'm just throwing the PlayStation 5 on it.
That's
right.
Do you have to get permission to do that, or are you just doing it?
I'm just doing it. I work.
Same.
Yeah.
Like I don't think should there be a level, listeners, of where you have to tell your spouse if you're doing a purchase?
I think it depends on the marriage.
Okay.
I've been married a long time, and I manage pretty much all of our finances.
I do the same.
So, and it's like I haven't screwed us up yet. Pretty good with it.
I think the concern is
I'm not
more
an idiot.
It's less the expense, more the time suck.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, if you know me, I'm not going to be on that thing for.
You're not just going to be gaming for 20 hours a week.
No, this will be a deal where it's like me and SEC Tony. It's like Saturday night we're bored,
and I got to support the fellas on the team squad. They got their names.
To be honest, I'm way wanting it more for the racing games, the sim racing games.
Oh, there you go.
I will not play that much NCAA football. And the other issue I have is when I used to play NCAA, all I would do is be Texas Tech, and I would just run the air raid and just annoy the hell out of people. Dunk there, dunk there, dunk there, running back, screen, out, 5 and out, button hook, go. That's all I would do.
I still have the 7th floor of Larch mad at me. So 2003 was my freshman year at Iowa State. This was in the heyday of Texas, the Vince Young, Roy Williams,
absolutely
era.
So that was the Reggie Bush team.
Yeah, same era.
Yeah.
So, but I was always Texas, and I'd put Roy Williams, who was the receiver, didn't do much in the NFL, but he was really good in college.
I remember Cowboys, right, in the NFL.
You might think the safety. I get there. Remember, there's a Roy Williams, the receiver, and Roy Williams, the safety. Anyway,
Aiden, will you look that up, please?
Can you find out?
It's going to drive me nuts.
Roy Williams, the receiver,
presented by Mechdyne, by the way.
Yeah, thank you, Mechdyne. And I would put Roy Williams at quarterback, and I would just run to the end zone. It was great.
There was an earlier,
and I had NFL, I had college football or Iowa State players next to me, and they got mad at me. Like, you can't, that's not football. I'm like, do you remember? They designed the game.
It was a couple years before that, the Woody Dantzler and Clemson.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I would always just be Clemson, and I hated Clemson, but Woody Dantzler
was so good at it.
Like, you just run around and So what I really like in those games,
it's 20 years ago,
I've heard
21 years ago. That's
Connor
sad.
Ferguson is a gamer. He, spends way too much time doing this stuff. I love you, Connor, but you need to half the time on that, more time calling recruits. I'm just kidding, buddy. I love you. You're doing a great job. He told me, and he would know, because again, he loves these games and he's really into it. He said it's really hard, which is what I would like.
Oh.
So, like, the challenge I would get is I don't really want to play you.
Yeah.
I want to play the computer and see what I like is the AI.
I agree. I don't like playing other people.
Yeah. What I like is the AI.
antisocial.
And so, like, if your play calling gets predictable, I want the, like, actual challenge of play calling. And that to me is the fun part of these games. And the Madden games, towards the end of my gaming era, had gotten really good at that. Like, you had to really follow your block.
Yeah.
You couldn't just.
You had to actually call a play that was
when
functional.
we were kids, it's just like you just pop out and you're gone if you're fast enough, right? And like that, to me, like, I like it when it's super realistic.
What did we find out on Roy Williams?
Both played for the Cowboys.
Yes.
Oh, really? Roy,
he was number 4 for the Cowboys.
So,
my second favorite team.
I believe the safety only played for the Cowboys.
Okay.
No, he played for the Bengals as well. Then receiver Roy Williams played for the Lions, Cowboys, and Bears.
It was the Lions first. Though.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He got drafted by the Lions because they took him right after Calvin Johnson, I believe. Didn't they do a couple of wide receiver picks?
I believe so.
2 years in a row.
Yes, I believe you are correct there. That's 20 years ago now. We're old. But hey, I have not. So if you guys wanted to you've been really helpful with this. Send my wife a couple messages that, hey,
she's a former Furniture Mart employee. She understands.
The PS5 would be good for the kids. Let's just go that route. 6 and 4-year-old, they'll eventually play it. And I got to support my guys, Jalen and Jaden, and
I mean, you're the NIL guy,
right? I mean, I am supporting their NIL then because they got like $500.
See, now there's this game that I really want to buy, and this is like, you'll laugh, but it's called F1 Manager.
Oh, see, I'd be all about that.
You don't race. You're making the decisions. You're
wait, is it on a PlayStation?
Yeah.
But you don't race?
You're making all the decisions. It's like franchise mode 100%. Like, I want to put this much research and development into the engine program. All right, we're going to handle this new marketing lady, and she's supposed to be really good to sell us more merch.
That sounds way too much like work for me. I'm out.
That's the type of gaming I like. The sim stuff. Like,
if you're doing the F1 game, wouldn't you just want to just hire Verstappen and be like, hey, go win?
See, that's part of the decisions you make in this game.
Like, have the most money.
Because you're like, should I put money into my driver or more into the car? And I'm again, Leach disciple. I put the money into the car because I think the drivers are, Cliff Kingsbury, Graham Harrell, whatever. They're all the same. Put them in the Leach's system and it's going to work. It's all about the system.
Do you think
I'm telling you, like with this Iowa State running game and the offensive line, there's a reason the line looked better in the second half of the year because they opened up the offense.
You know what we're not talking enough about? And you did a good job with Clanton. I thought it was some good conversation. That was one of the best interviews of the
summer. To be honest, I think if anybody wants insight into the football program, if you want to listen to anything, listen to that interview.
James Neal.
Yeah. Really good conversation. He was terrible the first half of the year, and it was a really good player at the end. Very serviceable.
I am cautiously optimistic about the O-line.
I don't think you can just automatically assume he's a backup now.
I agree with that. 2 weeks, fall camp, 2 weeks away. And then we'll start getting the real insight. That's what I'm excited for. Like who's coming on here. So, yeah, we're approaching here. We're there. We start. There's the football game. Week 0 is 5 weeks away. The Hall of Fame game for the NFL is 2.5 weeks away.
Who do we got on Hard Knocks this year?
I believe it's the Jets.
The Bears.
The Bears?
Yeah.
Another commentary here, as we're all over the place today. We've got too many of these Hard Knocks type shows now. Now none of them are special to me.
Well, now they have the Giants doing the.
Well, that's what I'm so confused. Like, what do I watch?
And
Gundy had one, Baylor, Dion had one.
Yeah,
like it's too much. It's too much.
What's the official one? Is the Bears though?
Yeah,
and that's done really well.
Like the preseason or whatever.
I always find myself I watch like the first 3 weeks of it, and then it's like there's real football.
Interestingly, the Bears are playing in the Hall of Fame game this year against the Texans.
It's always a good feeling that Sunday night, though, when that Hall of Fame game.
Oh, yeah. It's August 1. It's a Thursday.
We're going to do the latest on Big 12 expansion as there's been a little bit more come out on that. For what it's worth, and I don't say this to toot my own horn, but I wrote about 1,200 words on this for our subscribers on Monday. And I stand by everything I wrote. I think it was a really accurate report as to what's going on behind the scenes. Obviously, a fluid situation, but a lot of it's sensitive. So I can't just come out and say stuff here on the pod. And I want you to subscribe. This is a business that we're running. So you can go to our premium site or Patreon, wherever you want to read that. We will talk some about it here as our guy Jason Shear over at 247 with Arizona continues to talk. And he is really tooting the horn of Florida State and Clemson to come to the Big 12, which I think is possible, Brent. I think it's very possible, but I will stand by everything I have said for the last week and a half. If it happens, there's got to be somebody pushing it. There just has to be. I said on Sunday night's podcast, I do think it's very possible that the ACC could tell Florida State, hey, thanks.
Yeah.
And one would go, well, why would they do that? And I understand why you would ask this, because that is their Texas. That is their Oklahoma. If Florida State and Clemson leave, you could say the ACC is done. And I fully understand that. But I don't
know if it would be done, though. And I think that's what I've learned in the last 2 weeks is there is a real fight to keep the ACC relevant.
And I would ask, you have to think beyond just these football teams. The question is, does the ACC and ESPN want to basically be the guinea pig to test these grant of rights in court? Because it's going to be long and it's going to be messy and it's going to be expensive, okay? I also think there's an aspect of this. Think about all the property ESPN owns, okay? If you go to court and Florida State wins, college athletics as we know it are done. If these grant of rights, if it's shown that they don't matter,
they can go whenever they want, wherever they want.
Then you're going
to need a new structure at that point.
The whole thing blows up. Yeah, and maybe I don't think
it's done, but it would
I'm saying college sports as we know it are done.
True.
Because then anybody can get out of anything, then you're kicking teams out of conferences. You're And maybe that's what we need to get this thing to a geographical, back to where that matters. My point is, and I haven't seen anyone make this point. I think this is original. Does ESPN want that cat out of the proverbial bag with everything that they own? Because then all of a sudden your precious SEC contract is void, essentially. Anybody can get out. Now, not that they're going to want to get out, but you see what I'm saying?
I do.
This is a bigger conversation so I think my opinion from a business standpoint, ESPN is going to want ACC to not take this for a 3-year court case.
And so they might take a hit by letting them go, still pay the rest the same in efforts to keep those, mainly the SEC contract, intact. That makes a lot of sense.
But the problem that Florida State has that I have gathered is they do not have a landing spot. And my guy Brett McMurphy reported that yesterday too, that the SEC and Big Ten would not be interested. Of course, the Big 12 is interested, but at what cost? And if the way this works, and I've said this for 2 weeks, the way this works is if they let them out and ESPN says, yeah, we'll give Florida State extra. We're just going to move that money from the ACC over to the Big 12. That's how it works. Any other way, I do not see unequal revenue sharing. I do not see these Big 12 schools taking a bath. I don't think that these schools will agree to that.
It'd have to be,
or private equity comes in.
Private equity would have to come in, but come in a really university friendly way, which I don't know if that's possible.
Yes.
And I think that's the concern from the existing administrators at these schools. First, I would say seeing the bigger picture beyond what Yormark is looking at. Yormark's very much, and it has served him well, a kill or be killed mentality. Keep pushing it, keep pushing it, keep pushing it. Where I think you've now seen the administrators and college athletics actually as a whole kind of going, wait a second. There's so much change right now. Let's take a step back. Let's not damage ourselves 20 years down the road for what purpose now? And I do think common sense is starting to take hold a little bit, not a lot. I mean, we still have gotten ourselves in this really strange circumstance with the geography in particular. But I think the TV networks are saying we don't want to keep making changes because the more we change, the more our contracts get voided. Then you get the big dogs in that they don't want in, and that is the tech companies. That's where this all is coming from. And if the grant of rights is not enforced, then they may lose the SEC, and that's the golden goose. And so I honestly think you're to the point. They are willing to sacrifice Florida State and Clemson to keep the SEC.
That's where my head's at.
I think that's very smart. And if you're the Big 12,
and I don't think they would be heartbroken if they didn't have to pay Boston College and Syracuse either.
So the question would be, if Florida State and Clemson say, screw it, we're going to the Big 12, we're going independent, whatever, what happens to those other schools? I think it would be interesting because I do think the Big 10 would still take Notre Dame for sure. No questions asked. They are waiting on Notre Dame. That is a marriage that will happen at some point. I really believe that. But who else goes with them? Is it North Carolina and Virginia and somebody else?
Stanford.
Does the Big 12 go, okay, well, we'll take you, Florida State and Clemson. We also want Louisville and...
That's my guess. And then you have your Big 3 leagues. Like that. To me, that's how this ultimately plays out. I just don't think it's happening soon.
It sounds like the Big 10 the SEC do not have an appetite to poach. If the thing blows up, they will rescue, as somebody called them, the dead fish, which is whatever.
And then the rest, like Wake Forest and Boston College. I'm sorry, you're Oregon State
might be.
Washington
I would not
State.
want to be them right now.
Yeah, and this just screamed like this is what our biggest fear was with Iowa State.
And
10 years
think
ago.
You are, thankfully, you are going to be okay.
I think so too.
The Super League does not seem to me like it'll ever take off with the current structure. There's just too many things working against it, including the playoff. But now if you're the ACC or you're the ACC's partner, which is ESPN, is it worth it to continue to invest at the same level? Because if I'm North Carolina, Virginia, I'm still looking at the Big 10. But if I could make around the same and not have to change a whole lot, because if I'm the Big Ten, I can't do a full share for North Carolina and Virginia. You're going to have to take the Oregon and Washington treatment to get them. So I think everybody would rather have the status quo, not named Florida State right now.
The Big Ten has an advantage, I think, with all this conversation because it has so many media partners. It has NBC, it has CBS, it has Prime.
Truce. Yes. Peacock. I don't even know.
Yeah, whatever. No, I don't think they're on Prime. They're not. But my point is they can split up the bill a little bit more.
Good point. Yep.
Where it's harder with the Big 12 because you only have the two, and they're both these legacy, that I think Fox is probably a little better financially than ESPN is right now, but ESPN has more of a commitment to live sports than Fox does.
Well said. My opinion is the appetite across college athletics is nowhere near what it has been the last 5 years. I think a lot
of paying the players has to do a lot of that.
It does.
Yeah,
that's a
for sure
huge part of it. And I think a lot of schools are like, we've gone through way too much. Let's just relax for a little bit. If the ACC goes belly up, then you have a move. But I think unless the two moves are the ACC going belly up and or Notre Dame decides, hey, we want to go to the Big Ten. And then you might see some more shifting because if the Big Ten adds Notre Dame, they're going to need to add another school. And then the SEC says, okay, well, if they have two, then we need to add two. And the Big 12 says, okay, well, then we need to. And that's where you get more. I don't see in the next 10 years it going the other way where it shrinks. I think we might expand a few more. I don't think we shrink down, except for if the ACC goes belly up and your Wake Forest, your Syracuse, your, I don't know who else would be, Pitt,
BC.
maybe BC might be left on the cutting room floor. But if you're an Iowa State fan, I think you're in a really good spot. But you're starting to see pushback from the Big 12 administrators to your mark of like, hey, man, like, we appreciate you. This is not a year ago adding these four corner
schools. At some
schools.
point, money has to be made.
Yeah, you got to still exactly. You can't continue to just hemorrhage money the way it's going. And I do think,
but
the status quo, there will be addition. I have no doubt Yormark will add schools. It's just not going to be as easy as it was for those corner four.
Yeah, this will all come down to because their TV contract was up, and that's why Brent says that. I'm trying to put this in layman's term for everybody. The ACC's is until 2036, guys. That's 12 years from now.
That's still crazy. What were they doing?
This is not a deal. Well, do you remember at the time, though? We would have killed for that deal in the Big 12 at the time. But that was a long-ass deal.
It was 20. It's like
and that
20...
Swafford guy who signed that deal, like you read his quotes now, and like he thought he was leaving the league in this like amazing spot. Like they really thought so. But the Big 12 will have another deal before they come up for their next one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's where it's messy because the ACC and ESPN are going to have to wipe their hands of Florida State for this to happen. And we've laid out how that could look. Will it happen? And I think too, this Phillips he's kind of a badass from what I understand. This Jim Phillips, like he's a fight. He feels more Brett Yormark than Bob Bowlesby to me.
I agree with Klyakov, who just totally whiffed Klyakov.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't have much more to add than that.
I do. Yormark is definitely interested. There's no question.
Yeah,
like he is all in on
as
this.
You should be.
It's not as simple as, hey, let's just go do it. There's a lot of moving pieces that even he can't just, bully his way through here. There's a lot of things that have to go right to get this done. And I don't even know if the people in the Big 12 want it to get done. There are some people who do.
I think anybody to a man or a woman would say, yes, we want it, but at what cost? I mean, that's really the ultimate. At what cost?
Yep. Because what has changed, we talked about it on Sunday, the NIL paradigm and the new $20 million expense is a monster of a deal. So if you're the Big 12, this is why you're exploring the naming rights and you're exploring the patches on the jersey and you're exploring all of these things, because the goal would be, if you can replace that $20 million somewhere else, then maybe you can take a little bit of hit for the long-term gain of adding a Clemson and Florida State. So the more you see the Big 12 being proactive and getting revenue in, will give you more chance to add those teams for the same price.
Aiden, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm assuming you've been paying attention and not playing like Angry Birds over there.
I was actually playing Angry Birds, so
Flappy Bird.
Are you interested at all in this stuff? I wonder, because Blum and I could have this conversation.
So it's kind of funny.
3 days a week for 2 hours a day. Like, and these get good ratings. These shows, I would guess, based on the headline of Sunday's podcast, would be one of our most listened to of the year. I am really curious, though, for a guy like you who really didn't live through the missile crisis.
No, I honestly don't remember anything.
Is this interesting to you? And you can say no.
I think it's interesting, but it was kind of funny. Me and my dad were having this conversation the other day about it. And you know how we have all these streaming sites and how everyone's like, man, I wish that you could just have one service that gets you everything.
Yeah.
You think we'll ever get to that with conferences where it's like everyone is so spread out and then one guy is like, you know what? It'd make a lot of sense if we just
would make a lot of sense.
Had all these guys play each other in the same spot.
You know, it's funny. So I was having this. Don't laugh at this. This is the God's honest truth, Blum, and you're going to find this fascinating, I think. So sprint car racing and late model racing. So that's my passion. Aiden, you lived with me for a while. Brent, you lived with me for a while. It's like, that's what I do in my free time. They're going through the same thing right now. So the World of Outlaws, and hear me out, people. I know you're not interested in this, but this goes into the greater conversation. It's this iconic touring series that is like, it would be like the NFL of dirt track racing, okay? And they've always been owned by one group, and this group was very proactive, 7-8 years ago, and created a streaming service to start televising their races on a subscription basis. It's called Dirt Vision. Well, Flow, who owns Flow Wrestling, we watch a lot of wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, they're always doing, like, they have everything.
Not Flow from Progressive Insurance.
No. It's like, so they have a deal called Flow Racing now. What has happened in the sprint car world is half of the drivers from the World of Outlaws broke off and started their own series, which is in partner with Flow, while the World of Outlaws is televised on Dirt Vision. And I had a new sprint car fan, very prominent person at Iowa State, actually. Won't say his name, but he's gotten really into this sprint car thing. And he texted me the other night. He goes, why the hell can't all these drivers just race each other?
Mm-hmm.
And I was explaining to him, I go, this is the exact same thing that Fox and ESPN have done to college football, where one of them has like their cash cow, the Big Ten, the other one has their cash cow, the ESPN, or with the SEC. And they're competing against each other, and they're using these competitors. Now, in this case, it's the schools. In this case, up there, it's the sprint car teams. And they're using them as pawns in their economic game. So, like, this isn't just... we've seen it in pro wrestling before, where Turner was going head to head with the USA, with WCW and WWE way back in the day. This isn't new, but to you people out there who refuse to acknowledge, this is all business, right? Like
it's a TV product.
These teams that we watch, they are all television products. That's what they are, and it all changed in 1985. When basically the NCAA was told you can't dictate television rights for everybody.
To answer your dad's question, though, Aiden, no, it won't happen unless the whole thing blows up. And there are some things that would cause it to blow up, i.e. employment is a big one.
Yeah.
Honestly, that could throw the whole thing for a loop.
The only way it does is it like in the sprint car thing, it's like if one goes out of business.
Yeah.
That's the only way.
And so that would be the other movement is if the ACC goes belly up and then.
Well,
I still think there's too many people with egos and power to make it work, though.
Don't look past this. This is the most under talked about point and the most fascinating part of this equation, in my opinion. The fact that mortal enemies, Fox and ESPN, have teamed up to create their own little streaming service where people can, check them both out at the same time. Why is that interesting, Chris? Because it shows you how terrified they are of the big bad wolf, Amazon and Netflix and Apple getting involved in this game, because they know the second that they do, they are screwed.
Yeah.
They can't outbid those. They can't.
I'm afraid we can't go to now. There might be an aggregator service that could get them all under one app,
which I hope.
But they're not going to consolidate.
I mean, at what point does like YouTube TV integrate the ESPN Plus, where like it used to do with MLB.TV, but they don't do that anymore.
Hulu has that with ESPN Plus.
Yep,
see, because Hulu's owned by
Disney.
Yeah. Like it's all like YouTube TV. It used to be great. Oh, my MLB TV, the Braves are on. It pops right up on my little feed, right? Well, they don't do that anymore
because MLB wanted it on its own app.
Yeah, and like Amazon's going to own the NBA.
Yeah,
right. Like I'd love to have like, oh, Niang's playing. Cleveland's just going to pop up on my, but they don't play well together. None of these companies are. And so to answer your question, when are they going to stop competing? Somebody's got to die, like not literally, but what? Like, that's the only way this works. That, or you go into a super league model, like the NFL has, where the NFL controls the television, not these. And so it would be like in the NFL, like the NFC North has one TV package. And the AFC West is on, they're on Amazon, but the NFC East is on ESPN. But like, it's insane the way we do this.
That's under one umbrella, and they still have segmented out. Now you got Prime over here. You got Netflix has the Christmas.
And they're the brilliant ones. And that's why I said I think the Big Ten has an advantage here because they have so many partners.
Yeah, so it's not going back in the bag. I think in the perfect world, there would be one commissioner that oversees all this, and you revenue share with 65 schools, but you're not.
But Bama's never going to take the same as Central Florida.
They're not. And then the commissioner, who, as Pollard said a couple months ago, and he's dead on, is like, what commissioner is going to get fired? Who's going to not take the $5 million? Like these guys everybody has a way to exist.
It's like our government.
Yeah, you're not cutting government.
It's like, all right, we don't need the House of Representatives anymore. We're just going to roll with the Senate and the judiciary.
It's a loaded conversation, pal.
Thank a couple. I have two Big 12 teams I want to pick your brain on. And then we are going to replay. I want to make sure people heard this interview because I thought it was really good. Anthony Becht, Rocco Becht's dad, joined us on Saturday. And it was in the middle of a really long show. I'm worried that some people missed it. So we're going to replay it here at the end of this podcast. In case you missed it, we're making it easy for you. And listen to this guy. He's incredible. The Chad Pennington stuff's phenomenal. Talking about the former Cyclones who were in the UFL with him. It was a great interview.
We need to have Anthony on again.
I would love to before the season.
Yes.
In a little bit of a different setting where, we were very
we were pro Rocco.
We were very much in a charitable.
Yeah, it was a charitable function
where we could talk more like diehard football.
He gave us way too much nuts and bolts for.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, it was great.
So that's coming up as well. Want to thank a couple of our presenting sponsors here on Williams and Blum Wednesday. Of course, our friends over at Kelderman Manufacturing. I got a text.
You're going to die on me here?
I am. I've got the sneezies.
Yeah.
I got a text or a tweet. Somebody wanting us to talk about the down corn reel after that mini derecho or whatever that was came back. A little early for that, but great point, my friend. Remember the Kelderman down corn reel when we get to that time of year, when we get the harvest.
I haven't seen too many derechos in the last 4 years.
I
could do without.
I didn't even know that was a thing until like 2 years ago.
I will say this: meteorologists are really good. They don't get enough respect.
Dude.
They called They said on Sunday afternoon, like derecho is going to happen on Monday. It's pretty good. I know they get a lot of garbage.
Been reading a book about
these
Area
guys are
51.
pretty good. They got derechos in Area 51.
No, but a lot of it. There's a couple chapters in this book about how many like satellites we have in space and stuff that are just watching everything. And there's some stuff on like weather satellites and just like how accurate this stuff. It's wild.
It's still one of my.
It's wild.
Area
stuff.
51 is close to Lubbock.
Yeah.
And I learned something when I was in Lubbock.
Roswell's close to Lubbock.
Roswell.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where
Area 51 is north of Vegas.
You're right.
But Roswell is close to Lubbock.
Anywho, one of my favorite weather phenomenons is a intense dust storm because of the name. It's called a haboob.
Really?
A haboob. Haboob.
I've seen those. Carper and I drove from Vegas to LA once.
You don't want to be driving in a haboob.
It is wild though when you're out in the desert and like you can like physically see a tornado of dust just swirling around in the middle of it.
Dust spout. That's like a dust spout.
Yeah, but it's not going to kill you.
Right.
But you can physically, it's wild.
And a haboob you don't want to drive through it, but it's basically like Independence Day, but with wind and sand.
One of my favorite things to do when I'm in the desert is go out to the res. I'm serious.
You're just there all the time.
I love when TJ coached out there. Allison, I'm taking car. Where are you going? The res. They love it when you come out and hang out and have some beers with them.
Like your reservation here, just to give you. I'm interpreting for the audience.
It's awesome.
Here.
Like I'd love it. You sit out there and drink, like on their patios.
That's a YouTube. That's a haboob right there.
Holy
giant
shit!
Haboob. What would you do with that? Like that giant wind sandstorm coming at you?
I've seen those in like movies and stuff.
Well, it's legit. It happens in Lubbock all the time, and it's called a haboob.
The Texas Tech Haboobs.
You learn right. You learned something today. Alternate uniform. We're the haboobs today.
Anyways, I don't even know where I was going. I was going to tell a great res story from back in the day.
Kelderman in the down corn reel.
Yeah,
that's where that started.
Want to thank our friends at Gravitate Co-working. If you have an office next to somebody who listens to garbage like this all the time and you want to get away from them, you should go to Gravitate Co-working. They've got desk space. They've got even like full-blown offices. You could even have just a little. You need a mailbox, like an official mailbox. You can get it sent there, gravitatecoworking.com. And we are coming up on football season. You need to get that will done because the cardiac clones could put you into cardiac arrest tomorrow. HopeWoodJD.com.
6 weeks.
She'll get your will done in a day.
So you got 6 weeks.
Also, our friends at Game Day Men's Health with locations in Ankeny, West Des Moines, and North Liberty.
Breaking news. Well, not breaking news. This happened yesterday. Did you see Iowa State got rid of UNI in the 2026 schedule?
I did see that. Yeah, good.
Replaced them with SEMO. So that's good for That's good for everybody's longevity.
Did you see we have to go to Bowling Green, to Arkansas State? These have got to be adjusted. I get it in the past. I know why they're doing it, but they're not going to now because they got to pay the players. Like they're doing it so they don't have to pay those schools. You're saving like $3 million.
Yeah.
They're not going to.
I would like to see the math of home game impact versus bringing a team in playing a road game. You know what I mean?
The problem is,
like,
I don't necessarily know, and I know Jamie and the athletic department care about the local economy.
Yeah.
I know that they care, but that's not impacting the bottom line of the athletic department.
Not directly. Now, you would think if I was a business in Ames, I would say, okay, Iowa State, you have a home game. We're going to donate more. Like that's again, big thinking head here. That's how I would approach it. I do think there are some things that Iowa State could be better at in regards to monetizing some of the game day stuff. I mean, it's no mystery. I think the concession stuff could use a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the beer. It's just concessions in general. And I know a lot of that it's a person power, your help. What do you have? You can't just, a lot of these, like you go to a professional baseball game, NBA game, the food is really top notch. I think that's one area Iowa State could do better. I don't think the options are great. I've been in the stands now for 2 years. I think I've been in the concession area twice.
Because there's just nothing.
There's just not. It's just not. And it's not, again, it's nothing to do with alcohol. Now, alcohol would also make you more money. There's no question about that, but it comes with their trade-offs. But I think what all athletic programs will have to do here is look at what are we doing? How can we make more money? I mean, you just have to in this environment. I still think Iowa State could do more in regards to the monetization of the fan experience in some capacity beyond tickets and parking.
I would agree. And I'm not in the stands enough, but I do know based on texts from my wife during games that it's not a pleasant experience.
And it's not free. Like in order to, this is, and I totally understand that if you're going to build out, you got to have more people and you got to have more infrastructure. Correct. Like you are limited to what you have.
And you only have so much money to do this.
And Iowa State has added so many more fans in the last 20 years.
It's hard.
It's hard. Like you can't
it's not a snap of the finger thing we're talking about.
But I do think that in my opinion, there is something there.
Hopefully the Sci-Town thing too. We got to factor that in. That's
absolutely is a big part of it. So great point. So the Sci-Town, when that comes online, gosh, you'd like to think if you have a home game, the amount of money that Sci-Town might bring in may offset what you're spending to bring in Arkansas State rather than going there.
Yeah, at the end of the day, in this new era, I just can't imagine there's going to be a lot of Big 12 teams that are going to. Maybe it'll go the other way.
Yeah.
Maybe it's going to be, hey, trying to think of a NIL school. Maybe West Virginia is going to be like, we need to save some money on these buy games, so we'll do a trade and home and home. Maybe they will.
Yeah. Or you could spend less. You might play better non-conference basketball opponents because you want to bring them all in.
Yeah.
I mean, your trade-off of spending $100,000 on a slappy versus playing somebody good might be worth it.
But
but you don't want to lose, because if you lose, then you won't make the tournament.
I think these buy games in football are going to keep getting more expensive.
They should be. If I was one of those
supply and demand thing,
and they're only going to have like 2.
Like Bowling Green's probably going to charge you $2 million.
That's why I wonder if you'll see more of the interconference stuff.
Yeah, where the Big 12 and the SEC are going to have a. But I also think that those people are not going to want to work with the Big 12.
That's another good point. There's so much that is going to change here, and it's hard to know exactly. But this is where Chi-Town really we need to keep pushing on that. 100% agree, because that could be a huge differentiator for Iowa State as compared to others. Great point.
Thank our friends at the Iowa Clinic Men's Center, Iowa Clinic. Shout out to Dr. Danielson, who's been helping me out. She's fantastic, and she is a listener of the podcast. Like that?
Who is?
Dr. Danielson.
She?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. Big listener to the show.
Very good.
Taking great care of me. So
you're
appreciate
looking good. You're looking. How's the back and the neck after?
I'm very, very sore. It turns out
you're not as young as you once were.
Not even that, but those pro wrestlers, they're trained for years on how to take a fall for a reason.
You were on that.
I woke up at 3 a.m. and I couldn't move.
And it's a delayed thing, right? Like you're probably okay the next
day. Oh,
yeah.
I know how somebody like in a car wreck feels now. Like when you have bad whiplash, it's the front of your neck. It's the front muscles. Because they're like, what, catch you? And you look at it and you're like, oh, you just got pushed to the ground. No, like it's
a force there.
Yeah. The G-force.
The sunglasses are all the proof you need for.
See those things just fly off?
Yeah.
Actually, it made the shot really good.
It's good. It was, hey, the content was good.
It was pretty funny. Elise told me the other day that she wants to be a girl wrestler on TV now. We were at Aiden, God's honest truth. We were over at our neighbors, the Andersons' house. And all of the kids, so Blum's kids, my kids, and the Anderson kids are all in this little pool. And all of a sudden, the Blum boys are like whooping each other's ass.
Yeah. Well,
they were playing pro wrestling in the pool. Cammie was the ring announcer. We got all these kids. They're just obsessed with pro wrestling now.
Bondurant Pro Wrestling Factory.
It's going to be. All right. 2 teams I want to pick your brain on. If you are into Big 12 football, specifically from the gambling side. We didn't do all gambling. It was a lot of it was like, when I say gambling stuff, to me, it's less about, oh, I'm going to put this money on. And it's more about, oh, that Vegas has this team at 8 wins, over, under, and analyze it. That's what I like about it.
It's predictions and outcomes.
Yes.
And yes.
The 2 teams I'm really fascinated by, Central Florida, Oklahoma State. So my gut on Oklahoma State tells me, this is my gut, that a little bit of a return to the mean. But from a sheer analytical standpoint, and what I know is that they are probably being left out of the conversation with Utah and Kansas State unfairly. They have the most experience in the league.
Say they have returned. They return more than Iowa State.
And you have the coach that's, the kind of the godfather of the league right now. I'm looking at this again. Football Chris looks at them and goes, they probably overperformed last year.
Yes.
But they're a lot like Iowa State. Totally different team in the back half of the year. So if I'm being objective and I look at Iowa State and I say that, I have to say that about Oklahoma State. And from that aspect, they should probably be getting more conversation at the top of the league with Utah and Kansas State. What do you think about that?
Yes. If we're just looking at production, returning starters from what you did last year, all of that, and you got a Heisman running back potential in Ollie Gordon.
And one of the best coaches in the league's history. Kind of a wild card.
Interestingly, Iowa State and Oklahoma State are very similar.
Very much.
In, either you buy in what they did last year and it's going to continue, or you say last year was a bit of I don't want to call it an anomaly, but maybe the league was down relative to those two. Again, Oklahoma State for some reason has just in the back of my mind, I keep thinking it's going to be more like 2 years ago, less like last year for me. But then I see
that's what my gut tells me.
Same, but then I look at the numbers, like, but they got everybody back, including Bowman, including Gordon, including the offensive line.
Can we take a wait and see on we're not buying, we're not selling, we're holding?
Yeah, I think I'm holding on them. I think they're properly there. UCF is what I would say is a higher ceiling than them, interestingly, than Oklahoma State, but a huge floor. Like I could see UCF winning anywhere from 5 to 10 games. I really can. I don't know what to make of them. That does not help your analysis.
Hayden, do me a favor. Pull up the Big 12 preseason poll for me, if you don't mind.
The UCF quarterback could be awesome, or it might not work at all.
I've been reading a lot about him. I hung around Malzahn's deal for a little bit. He wasn't there the day I was, but his whole contingency was there. And I talked to some of these guys and then I watched his press conference. I'm almost wondering, they're going to do that Wildcat thing, right?
They're going to treat Jefferson just like Cam Newton.
And I just wonder, where are they picked? 8th. I think the two most underrated teams in the league, it's easy to me. It's 8, 9, and 10. Definitely 8 and 9 to me.
Yes. I
would drop Arizona.
Which I talked to somebody yesterday about them. They do have a full allotment of scholarship players. They did.
I understand.
They replaced them all, but it's still.
I question their depth.
Yes.
I know they have good starters. Yeah. I question their depth. I'm
dropped. By the way,
are you dropping Kansas?
I'm dropping K-State.
You're dropping them from 2. Would you put Oklahoma State above them?
I don't know if I would. I mean, this is where I'm struggling.
I'm telling you, 1 through 9 and 1 through 10 in this league is brutal. Draw a line, but really.
I agree. I'm not dropping or moving anybody up because I don't know.
TCU, my thoughts on them. It's more of I think Dykes is pretty good. I think that they're like the meme stock from they had a tough year last year and everybody's given up on them, but I would bet that there's a bounce back in some capacity.
Yep.
Texas Tech is the exact same conversation. Yep. I think they're a lot better than that.
Yep.
And I would guess that, I don't know, West Virginia is hard because I really like their quarterback, but I'm not crazy about Brown. I felt like that was the dead cat bounce there. But Central Florida, the thing I wonder about them, Brent, is using him like Newton and doing all that stuff. And Malzahn talked about this in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
What is the state of interior defensive linemen across this league?
Yeah.
Pretty good for Iowa State because you got some.
That's it.
I mean, if they're playing Kansas, right? You see where I'm going with this. Is Malzahn playing chess right now?
Yeah.
And what is their line going to be like? Too?
And teams that had success, why has K-State been fairly successful? Iowa State as well. You've been able to run the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as much attention as Brock Purdy got at Iowa State, it was really Iowa State's ability to run it with Breece Hall that made the difference. If you can run it, you're going to run it. I'm looking at UCF. It's a super interesting schedule. On the 14th, they go to TCU. Then they host Colorado. They go to Florida in a non-conference game on October 5th, which is totally random. They go to Iowa State. I don't know. I mean, I think with they are. I think my 2 wild cards, C-Dub, are them in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I could see them both finishing the top 3. I could see them both in the bottom 4. I think it's that much of a wild card.
I think I like West Virginia's talent more than I like Neil Brown.
2 years ago they finished in the bottom.
I know. I think Malzahn, though, I think he's pretty bright. Like, I think that he was at that hard job that is Auburn in that spot, right? Like that. But he's not an idiot. Like, he's.
No, and they've recruited. Their recruiting is getting better. It was not great when they were in their previous league. It's getting better. The question is, has it caught up yet?
And it's like, how do their transfers play out?
Right.
I don't know. I was looking at the Iowa State schedule and when lossing this thing. And those home games, man, I mean, you want to circle an aspect of the schedule that will tell you the season. It starts on October 12th at West Virginia, Central Florida, Texas Tech, Kansas. That is the area of the schedule that will make or break Iowa State season.
And the great thing is that Kansas game is in Arrowhead, and you get some really, what I would say, favorable schedules at home.
Yes.
The trip to West Virginia.
I'm glad to have UCF easy. And Texas Tech at home.
Totally agree. Because if you look at UCF last year, not great on the road, really good at home.
They're elite at home.
It's a tough. It's. I've been to games at the Bounce House before. It's a tough place to play. They care. They're just better there. That's a long road trip, no matter where they go in the Big 12 from Orlando.
I do think that at the end of the day, we can say on this Central Florida team, for me at least, let me look at their schedule real fast. Even if they're not like, oh, this team's going to play for a Big 12 championship, they're going to be, because of the style we think that they're going to play, that's a team that can beat anybody in the league.
No doubt. That's the thing.
Doesn't Utah have to go there? I want to say they do. I mean,
yes, on final week of the season.
See, like, that's a terrible draw for Utah.
That's a terrifying game for Utah.
Right? Like, that's fucking terrible if you're Kyle Whittingham.
Well,
you couldn't draw that up worse.
But on the other end,
you could see an 11-0 Utah losing that game.
Look who else has. Arizona has to go there on the 2nd. That's a monster of a road trip. But then the next week, UCF goes to Arizona State. That's a terrifying game. Arizona State's not going to be great, but they're going to be
going
better
that many time zones
on
west.
November 9th. Oh. That's what I'm telling you. Iowa State's schedule from a travel standpoint is about as good as it can get.
Yeah,
you have the long road trip to Salt Lake, and you go to Morgantown. That's manageable.
You've done Morgantown a bunch of times.
You're not doing,
and you went to Utah last year. I mean, granted, different school, but
you're not doing the 3 time zone thing. There's a weird situation now where Iowa State is at an advantage now, even as the northernmost school being in the middle.
Good point. So, this was supposed to be a 30-minute podcast.
Sorry, we might not have to. 50. We're going to have to hold off on Anthony.
No, we'll play
Anthony. All right, put him on there.
Just throw him on.
You guys aren't working anyway this week. It's too nice out.
Anthony Becht, the father of Rocco Becht.
If you have a large lawn, then you just throw this on.
This is perfect.
Just perfect.
Giddy up. All right, this is that interview we did with Coach Becht from last Saturday. We wanted to replay it again. We thought it was so good. Thanks to Aiden Wyatt for putting all this together. We will be back, Williams and Blum, Sunday, coming up this weekend.
Now we're bringing on, the legendary Anthony Becht.
Man.
Legendary.
I was told don't run your mouth with this guy, is what I was told.
No, we're caca.
The man, Battlehawks head coach. I like to call him the other Cyclones. That's how I look. My wife's like, what's this league? I'm like, this is all the Iowa State guys. I was like, that's good. Rocco's dad right there.
Yeah, man. You know, it's funny. I was just in St. Louis for a showcase, and the number one thing I've got from, like, multiple players that came to that showcase, like, Coach, I didn't realize how big you were in person. I was like, yeah, that's part of the whole process. So, don't mess it up in the game when you come play for me, But it's nice to get that. I don't know if he's saying big because I look, like, wide or big because I'm still tall.
Well,
no, I can't, actually. I can't. I can't even catch Rocco's ball, which is even worse.
Well,
I got to wear gloves.
Rock was just showing us his new website, and I was like, you need to get a dad bod section.
Well, yeah.
We got to have the dad bod section.
We get large. We get the big sizes. TheRoccoBecht.com.
Yes.
Listen, I'm a salesman by heart. I'm from Philly. Beautiful website. A lot of cool gear. Fan base is awesome. You guys got a really good show, man. I pop on and check it out once in a while, see what you guys are embracing and complaining about, and it's good stuff, man. Yeah, hey, you gotta.
I told Anthony, he's got my nut. If I'm out of line, if I say something that's factually incorrect, go ahead and just blow me up.
I know the business. I know how it is. I mean, look,
you have done a lot of media.
I have, yeah. I mean, ever since I left the league and after the 11th season, took a year off and did about a decade plus. I still do things for the Jets, So called a lot of college football games.
Yeah.
Called Iowa State. Rhodes was here his last season. Can't remember who they played. It was maybe. Man, I don't even know. Mangino was the coordinator, I think.
Those were the days,
yeah. Those were the days. Not as much money being influxed into the program at that point. Much different now, but great to be out here.
You should have seen it back when we were in college. I'm not kidding you. So have you ever been into the rec center? And you probably
haven't. No.
Okay. Well, it's just think of it like a student rec center. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's this track that goes up above everything in like the college weight room, so just like the random journalism major.
Me and Williams.
Because we're out there pumping.
Look
at
us. Yep.
I could tell.
The football program, their indoor facility was in that. We would stand over and watch them practice.
It's like a 30-yard field.
That's where they were practicing. Could you imagine that today?
No, I mean, you probably wouldn't get many players coming your way if that was the case. But
and we'd all have cell phones, and we'd be looking at their formations and all that stuff.
Well, I did want to ask you, what did you know about Iowa State? I mean, obviously, you guys are from Florida, so Rocco had other opportunities. But why did he pick Iowa State, and what attracted you here in the first place?
Well, we took a very methodical, really process of how we looked at these things, and key questions are, what's roster makeup look like? What does the coaching staff look like? What can we get a staff that can stick around? That was probably the one caveat that was worrisome to me because of the fact that when Rocco was looking, Coach Campbell was, being looked at all the time by another school, and we had a heart-to-heart discussion. And look, he may or may not have had opportunities prior since Rocco's been here, but at the end of the day, I think what they have now and what they have building, there's a lot to be said about sticking around, and I just want that. I want that consistency. It's very easy to jump ship and take another opportunity, but the loyalty there and just what he's all about. Campbell's the kind of coach that I would play for as a player. Those are the things that I demanded as a human being, as an athlete, and for my son to get that from me and my wife, and now to get that at the college side, and then ultimately for him to pave the way in his football career. That's on him to do that, and he's taking advantage of both aspects of those things.
How has it been enjoyable for you and your wife to get to Iowa a lot? I know you guys go to every game you can. It seems like you have embraced, here in the Cyclone State.
Love it. Yeah, love the fans. Just incredibly grateful and humble that, he got this opportunity, and really everyone has embraced him. When you're winning and things are good, there's excitement. But, I think it's also, too, just, how the fans galvanize around their players and teams. And I think there's a lot to look forward to this season with all the players that are coming back. But, we didn't miss any games last year, traveling on the road. It's a great schedule for me because I coach in the spring, and I have this off season now where I can really hone in and watch them grow and just sit back and try to move my seat around every game so I'm not on the camera for everybody knows me in the media, so I get a text, hey, where are you sitting? I'm like, I don't know, around this section, and try not to give them the exact seat. So I bounce around a bit, try not to get on the screen too much, but it's really fun. It's really nice to see, as an NFL player, someone that played the game at the highest level, and you have kids, and I know my other friends that, teammates that had kids, they all want their kid to do something similar fashion, and never pressed them or anything with the football, but, ultimately, like, to see it unveil itself with him and how he's kind of gone through this process where I was at this time in my college career versus where he is, he's light years ahead of me. So I had to figure it out a little different. My dad wasn't a player or anything like that. I wasn't injected with a lot of things to help me in the process. And, Rocco, again, he may have had those things, but you got to do it. I think at the end of the day, you got to go out there as a player. And just to see him do these things, it's been very gratifying for us.
Where were you at, as far as his football game goes, going into last year, right? Because we didn't really know. We hadn't seen him or JJ or whatever, and they were coming off kind of a tough year the year before. He gets thrown into that situation with everything that happened last summer. Like, mentally, is just like dad and football coach. Where did you think he was? Did he
Did he exceed your expectations, I guess?
I think so. I mean, until you actually do it, you know. Yeah. But I just know, you know, one aspect of Rocco that I've known since day one is his mentals. That factor to be able to compete, withstand, battle adversity, and we saw that. I mean, all the mistakes they may have made from a bigger picture where it's easy for a fan to see, he's always bounced back in a big way. So those are things to me when you look at the landscape of the position, how incredibly hard it is to play quarterback, especially now with everything you get around it and build around it, is being able to handle those pitfalls. And I think that the quarterbacks that do that great ultimately succeed. And the other thing is just the process of preparation. You know, if Rocco, you know, we've put together this 20-plus point kind of process of preparation for him that if he doesn't know every one of those things before the game, then he's not going to win and he's not going to have success. Chad Pennington, one of my best friends and teammates, he's put some things into that. And now Rocco's making it his own. He's doing and adding the things that he needs. But if you don't go through those things and you don't go through that process, you're not ready to play football. And that's all positions. It's different. But for the quarterback, you better be on point. You better have a plan in your process of what you're doing, because if you don't, you're not going to be successful and be great and be what you want to be. And I think he's taken advantage of that so far, and he continues to build on the things as well.
Is it hard for you to be, you know, you're obviously, you know, coach, but then also dad, and, you know, what's the line of, you know, how much advice you want to give without overstepping?
Yeah, you know, I don't know if I give a ton of advice. I sprinkle a little bit, but it's really more just hearing him and asking subtle questions to hear his response. And then, you know, when you get what you want to hear and there's something there, then it's okay. You know, he gets it. I think even his first year when he was kind of semi-backing up Hunter and just watching Hunter and watching the engagement and watching him play and making sure you're immersing yourself on the sidelines and knowing what's going on, that helped him a lot as well, build as a player. So there's a lot that goes into that process, and in order to expedite those things as a player, regardless of position, you got to immerse yourself in all those different aspects of it. And those are subtle reminders. I always say, hey, this or that, I saw this. What are those answers that I get from him? And that's kind of tells a story for me, instead of saying, hey, do this, do that, do this. He's gotten all that. He knows that, taking care of his body. There's a lot outside of football that you got to do in this game that's incredibly important, that nobody even talks about, that we talk about a lot. So it's fun. I love it. I'm glad I have somebody to talk about it with. But I share those same things with my players, with Hakeem Butler and Willie Harvey and Mike Rose. Those guys. I mean, it's every day helping someone grow. I got a lot of information to give. It's my time now, outside of my son and what I've given to him, to give the players and stuff like that to help them grow and you know, help them pave their path.
So you're putting together your franchise, and like, obviously there's a tie to you and Iowa State. How does that go down when you get those guys on your roster down there at St. Louis? Is Campbell talking to you about them? Like, were you just familiar with them?
Didn't Hakeem like DM you?
Yeah, Hakeem did. Sorry about that. That's a faux pas, right? In the business. I already didn't put my ringer on.
Yeah, that's old school radio. We don't care.
You're right.
Do whatever you want.
And there goes the camera. You know, for me, I knew these guys. I mean, I covered college football for a long time. I also know what that background is going to look like from players that played at Iowa State, right? Accountable, coachable, the culture that they came from. And those are kind of guys that I want to help build a culture where I don't have an off season. I don't have a OTA process, a spring process, or, you know, that spring type of process. We got to just show up at training camp and go. So those are kind of the guys that I just had expectation levels. I just knew they were going to do everything the right way. Now, how well they play and what they mean to our team, that's up to them. But I think, you know, those guys have shined the most because they are our captain. Willie was a captain. Mike is a captain on the field. Hakeem was the offensive player of the year, probably could have been 2 years in a row for the league. So just incredibly impressed by them, what they are as human beings. I love those guys. And, yeah, they happened to go to Iowa State, but it wasn't because they went to Iowa State. I took them because I knew what I was going to get, and they've really flourished in their opportunity.
Well, you got all the guys at the Jets, too.
Yeah, well,
it's crazy.
Listen,
crossover world.
You try to find, you know, look, I do a lot of the preseason stuff. I get to see a lot of the training camp rosters and players that aren't quite going to make it. And, you know, those are the guys we want on my team is right there. They're close, but they're just not quite there yet. And how can we fill those holes? Some of those holes aren't football. Some of them, you know, I always tell them I'm a psychiatrist first, as you know, then I'm a coach, you know, because the day-to-day messaging and things very critical, important on how you speak to these men, these young men that are trying to figure this thing out and give them the confidence. It's not like, Bill Parcells, when I was trying to walk around the other side of the building, I literally see Bill Parcells walking my way, and I go around all the way outside to get to the meeting the other way because I didn't, I just knew what I was going to get because he wasn't going to pat me on the back like he did pre-draft.
Right.
Yeah, after that, it was just more like boom, boom, and I love that. That took well for me, but it's a different time, it's a different generation, and you got to be able to know and be aware of people and what makes them go. And as a head coach, you got to know all the different players of what you have on a team. I try to take advantage of that as much as I can.
How's my guy Will McDonald going to fit in this year?
Yeah, listen, I mean, Will's is a really good pass rusher. He's learning so much from the guys that are already on that team, that staff. They do a great job. Will just has to, it's becoming a pro, understanding what it takes. I just think he maximized the snaps that he got. I thought he was very, very impressive on what he did, and he's going to get a lot more now. And, I think he's going to make a big jump. And, look, they got a very heavy defensive line. I mean, they got Jermaine Johnson and Hassan Reddick now. So, he's going to get more reps. But, listen, he doesn't quit. He's got incredible passion on every snap. And I think he's going to be really good. I foresee double-digit sacks at some point here soon when he gets the reps around him that he deserves.
So talk us through what you probably talked to Rock a little bit. Had an awesome year last year. How does what are the growth steps and what do you see from this entire? Let's just start talk about the Iowa State offense. And it seems like there's a lot of good players around him. This could be a really fun year.
Well, nothing's better than having consistency, right? So offensive line back, receivers, everything is similar on the same page, and you all went through the same growing pains and understand what it takes. Now it's really what's your process in the offseason. In particular for Rocco, it's like, okay, you're in that sophomore window. Traditionally in the pros and college, that sophomore window is a challenge for quarterbacks or coaches, whoever they may be, that second season, because people have film. People see your tendencies, your strong points. So what are you doing to counter that? What are you doing in the offseason to make sure you're a step ahead of what Iowa's defense and Oklahoma State's defense is probably going to try to do versus what they did last year, right? And what were those things that exposed you as a player? You can't just roll out there and be the same dude because you lifted and ran. And there's more to it on the mental aspect of it, and that's the challenge that I put him. What's your projects? He took an hour in the offseason this year every week and got with the defensive coach and made sure, hey, let's look at this from your perspective. I do some assignments, third down, red zone. Go study an offense that's similar to yours in the NFL. Look at the defenses. See how that structure is different and learn, man. You got to soak it all in. You got to immerse yourself. Tom Brady's a perfect example. Like, again, no one would say he's who he was in college until he got to, but his work ethic and his demand for the process, Peyton Manning's, it's hard to want to be those guys, but there's a reason why they're there. Their talent was high level, but it's the immersing yourself in the little minor details of improving everything in every aspect, and that's what every player has to do. And hopefully they feed off of him on what he does, and he brings them together, and everybody learns. And then they got an incredible staff. I'm excited for Taylor. I know he's really excited about taking over the OC role.
Well, he told me if the offense isn't any good, it's on him.
It's on him.
Well, that's not. Yeah, I mean,
it's all on him. Is what his words.
If he wants that, that's good.
I said, are you sure you want that on the record? Because those people, they will use it against you.
There's no doubt, but he'll have success.
He's awesome.
He's great. I think to this development of just him and Rocco and Coach Campbell, like more of that group discussion, just understanding and coming together, will really take big strides this year.
Is a dad who knows a lot about football. When your son's in that spot, they have a great year. Coordinator goes to the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, did you like promoting from within as opposed to going off and bringing some completely new offensive mind in? I mean, did you have a preference on how that would have gone?
No, I mean, it's always nice to have the same system.
Yeah.
If you bring an outside person in, there are some tweaks, and Campbell takes control of that. There may not have been. I trust the fact that, Campbell knows what he's doing, how he wants things to look. He's very cognizant of Rocco and what he wants that to look like, and the things around him, have really good conversations with him, and just listen to, what he foresees, just not now, but moving forward. And that vision is in line of what we want to hear. And I knew it would be, and that's a big part of the process of why he's here. So, having everything similar and maybe adding a little bit of what he feels is needed or missing, along with all the other Coach, is it Rue? Coach Rue from North Dakota State. He's going to bring, play calling and all that collectively. The line coach, all those guys have been in places where they have called plays and they know. So now you put it all together. I think it's a good hire, and it'll be good. Another thing is you let your coaches kind of. It's a group thing, and it's if you guys are on the same page, you're just going to have that much more success. And I just see that in the staff for Campbell, and that's huge.
Well, Coach, we appreciate it. I want to let you get back to the camp. You have a really impressive son. Brent knows him better than I do, but I've gotten to know him quite a bit here this summer, and he. That little podcast that I did with him a few months ago.
That was fun. That was really cool.
Blew me away. Like, I could have talked to him for 3 hours.
Well, no one really – it's funny because our conversations and the way we talk is a lot different than, sometimes when you're doing those things. But to get him to open up a little bit, show his personality. He's a funny guy. He's good. He's, not as serious all the time as we are. Maybe we come across when we do things, but he's down to earth as much as you could possibly be.
How proud of you are him for something like this? I mean, this is pretty unique and special. And again, I just want to. It was all Rocco and you guys' idea. I mean, this is a pretty special day.
Well, I did this for almost 20 years, giving back to my high school and then the high school that Rocco went to. And he was there from day one when he was a little kid, couldn't even get on the field. And he just watched. I just think for him, he understands the fact that giving back is important. I'm glad he's able to do it at a young age. Excuse me. It took me 5 or 6 years because I was trying to establish myself as a pro and really become something. And I was like, I want to do something and give back. But now it's his journey. It's his way. I see him now, how he's instructing, how he's walking around the camp. It brings back flashbacks of maybe how I did some things. And watching his teammates come out. I think the biggest thing, guys, is when you come to camps, it's Rocco's name. It's the people that come out and help, people in the red shirts, the people working the tents, the people that just are selfless about this and want to give back and do it. Those are the ones that really make these things flourish. Your staff. It's super important. I think this is awesome, and I'm glad the other players are out here. Really good players are out here, right? That's the one thing when you're the quarterback. You get the good players to come out. When I was tight end, it was like to get Larry Fitzgerald to come out, I was like pulling teeth. I got to do all these like travel things.
Well, the receivers want the ball. That's why they're here, right?
They're smart. Tight ends are here. Ben's a smart guy. Like, hey, man, you got to learn. You got to show up. Showing up's a quality that's really tough for some people, but to show up,
these guys get it.
People that are helping and stuff like that. It's just incredibly great. It's great, and I love it for their school. I love it for the people at Perry. Just the tragedy they've gone through and everything in this area. It's just really nice to see them come together, and they're extremely thankful. That's great, and the kids are having a good time. I love these moments, but coaching a kid that's 5 or 6 is tough, But then I realize getting in coaching a guy that's 25 sometimes is tough too. A lot of the same talks I have with those 5-year-olds I'm having with a 25-year-old these days. So it's kind of cool, but it's fun. These kids will have lasting memories. 10 years from now, they're going to look at these pictures like, oh my gosh, I was with Higgins, and this is great. Rocco, that's cool stuff, and it's fun to see.
Well, we appreciate Rocco. We appreciate the entire Becht family. So we'll see you at Jack Trice this fall.
I told him the same thing. Hopefully this is a thing that maybe not at camp, but you guys reach out to us. We want to help tell Rocco's story. He's doing great things, and we're proud of him. We're proud.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much, man. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, good luck with the podcast.
Go Battlehawks.
Go Battlehawks.
You got to put battle in front of it. We're not
no
can't shorten that thing.
Yeah, we're not the Hawks. Yeah, we don't like that.
Anthony Becht, the head coach over at the St. Louis Battlehawks, and of course, more importantly today, he is Rocco's dad.